This is Deltarune Chapter 5 and I'm about to show you what's gonna be there. Starting with the normal route. Chris and Susie woke up on the bench near the graveyard. How romantical. Because as you remember, Chris escaped his home at night, while Toriel and Sans were making a new sibling for Chris and Azriel. Chris and Susie went to the festival. The autumn wind spreads the leaves around the town. The festival looked fantastic. When our lovebirds arrived, they saw Noelle standing there with Birdly and other people from the hometown. Chris, Susie, Noelle and unfortunately Birdly joined some booths and games. There was the Ferris wheel, so Chris and Susie joined one cabin while Noelle and Birdly joined the other one. And during the ride, we uncovered Susie on a more deep level. She confesses in her dreams, fears and desires. After the ride, they decided to play at some booths to win a Ralsei plushie for $36.00. Of course, it was obviously a scam. So Susie got so furious that she smashed the booth and almost destroyed the scammer. The scammer was really scared, so he decided to give Susie her plush. She gifted it to Chris. Now it's time to kill. After the friendly time spending, Toriel and Sans arrived at the festival as well. Toriel noticed us and got furious. She ran up to Chris with wild aggression. Why the hell did you escape the house at night? She thought that Chris escaped the house and started acting weird last time, just because of Susie's influence. Toriel was probably suffering from a hangover. It was of course embarrassing, but the more embarrassing part was Asgore coming up to Toriel with a bunch of flowers. Toriel looked even more pissed off and told Asgore in a more aggressive tone that she is not interested in him anymore. Asgore noticed Sans near Toriel and they had an argument. And knowing our Sans, he hinted to Asgore that he was befriending Asgore's ex-wife every night. What a fatal shame! His ex-wife not only got a new boyfriend from the local store, but also Asgore became a cuckgore or escort in front of everyone. From such desperation, Asgore kneeled and screamed, Sans! He was holding the letter A for so long, so I felt his pain. He probably had a marriage his whole life. Cuckgore ran away and Chris with Susie decided to run too. Not for fun, but to check on him. Both of the heroes ran up to the Flower King, and when they opened the door, they saw a dark fountain there. Scared? Hell nah. Without further thinking, they jumped inside. Croissant and Smoothie spawned in the flower dimension, and of course, Ralsei appeared as well. The flower world looks mostly as a surrealistic space with typical Toby Fox vibes, filled with many types of plants, flowers, and mazes with puzzles. There were quite interesting puzzles, for example, watering flowers using a watering can, not a pin, or rearranging flowers by their colors to open some mythic doors. By the way, do you remember that in the Light World version of Flower King there were 7 flowers put into the vacuum glass? So these 7 flowers are now our antagonists, representing each soul like in Undertale, but one of them is a psychopathic flower like Flowey. But back to our heroes. The Fun Gang started recruiting every enemy, like they usually do. At the midway, they found one more secret puzzle. It was a maze made of thorns, which you had to avoid. You had to find 2 halves of the flower to unlock the secret door, which leads to the cheap copy of Omega Flowey. Or is it cheap? That secret boss consumed the other 6 flowers to become an Ultra Flower. The secret boss fight reminds me of the attacks of Omega Flowey, so there is nothing difficult there. After defeating it, we will get a Thorn Armor, which will not only protect us, but also if some enemy attacks us, they get some damage. After recruiting everyone, they reached the end and met Asgore. From the madness of the betrayal from his ex-wife, he didn't recognize his own human child, and the boss fight started. Asgore, as a true Flower King, starts fighting off using his vehicle.
Driving in my car right after a beer.
And using the fire magic as in original Undertale. 3 heroes had 2 steps of defeating Asgore without hurting him. Step number 1. Convince Asgore that Ralsei is his own son, Azriel. Step 2 is to subscribe to my channel and like the video. After the battle, our beloved cuckgore stops fighting. Asgore changed, he understood his mistake of attacking Chris and his friends.
Oh shit, I'm sorry.
Later, Chris with Susie sealed another fountain. Coming back to the Light World, Chris and Susie supported Asgore emotionally, and Asgore was fine. He calmly accepted the fact that Toriel is not interested in Asgore anymore. It was getting dark, so Chris and Susie needed to go home. But how Toriel would react, because she was furious at both of them. Chris came back home with Susie. Toriel apologized for her previous drunk night and today's scandal at the festival. They forgave each other and went to sleep, but something changed. Chris is not so angry at his soul that much as he was before. This night Chris didn't even throw his soul into the cage, but accepted it as well without any hostile behavior toward us, the players. And everything would be good if he wouldn't mention the weird drought. This time Chris wakes up at home. Heading to the kitchen, he sees Sans sitting on the table without his iconic blue coat. Sans, in his own manner, reminds Chris about befriending his own mom last night. And Chris got so furious, so he decided to use his secret tactic that every British person uses. Chris decided to stab Sans, but Toriel ran up with disturbance like,
What the hell are you two doing?
After some dialogue, they heard the knock at the door. It was not just the knock at the door, but it was Noelle, waiting for Chris for the festival. Looking at her, it was clear that she is corrupted by Chris. They both went to the festival and met everyone there, including Susie. But Susie was quite decent from Chris. She wanted to be friends with him, but from the other side she didn't want much. Noelle, on the other hand, wasn't showing the attention towards Susie anymore. She is focused on Chris now. And this scene was quite different. Susie looked more bored, spending the time alone. Birdley was in the hospital, while Chris and Noelle took a Ferris wheel. After the ride and deep confessions of Noelle towards Chris, they found out that there was no more Susie. Who gives a damn to Susie and her feelings? Later, Toriel and Sans arrived at the festival, and everything repeats. Asgore ran away, but this time Chris and Noelle, instead of Susie, decided to chase him. They ran up to the Flower King, but Noelle was scared of the dark, which is darker than the dark. Chris said, proceed. After 3 proceeds, Chris forced Noelle to jump into the dark fountain, and so did he. Chris and Noelle appeared in the Flower World, and later Ralsei appeared. Ralsei was definitely confused, like, who the hell is that long-faced deer, and where's my Susie Smoothie? But after some raging and concern, he still decided to join the fun gang. By the way, what about the enemies and the 7 flowers? Well, it was quite understandable that Noelle put every enemy into the snow grave. Ralsei, after witnessing that, got really furious this time. Ralsei starts begging Chris and Noelle to stop freezing everyone, but Chris says, it's not my fault, it's the evil Chara made me to do it. And of course, Chris and Noelle threatened Ralsei to put him in the snow grave as well. Ralsei got scared and furious, thinking that Chris went nuts, and he is the actual monster. So Ralsei decided to leave Chris and Noelle, but before leaving, he said, at first you seemed a much better person. I'm really disappointed in you, Chris. And our fluffy boy left. He will never come back. Chris and Noelle kept freezing everyone on their way. Noelle felt she was getting stronger and stronger, and so stronger the affection grew towards Chris. By the way, do you remember that after defeating a secret boss you would unlock the Thorn armor? Well, I wish you good luck defeating the Ultra Flower. It gets 2 times stronger. After hours of beating it and finally putting it into the snow grave, you can make Noelle equip the Thorn armor, and she becomes a half-goddess. The combo of the Thorn armor and the Thorn ring makes her untouchable and undefeatable. Having that crazy combination will result in unlocking a secret ending, but I'm going to tell you about it later. The Dark World crimes couldn't go for so long, because at the end of their way they met Asgore. But this time he recognizes Chris. Asgore is not hostile, he is hospitable and happy to see Chris. But Chris is being consumed by the evil player's plan and doesn't care about Asgore's feelings. So both Chris and Noelle put Asgore into the snow grave. Asgore was frozen the same as Birdley in the 2nd chapter. Chris made her friend freeze his own stepfather. Later, Christopher sealed the fountain after noticing what he did to Asgore. And Noelle, Chris got mortified by his actions and the control his own soul has over him. He told Noelle to get out. And damn, what the emotional swings! At first he wanted Noelle to be next to him, and now he tells her to get the hell out. Noelle got angry at Chris and she left him alone. Chris needed to go home as it was darkening. Chris came back home to his room, avoiding Toriel from conversation, just straight to his room, and threw the soul into the cage as usual. Later, Chris came to the kitchen to eat something tasty after the mass freezing he caused. Chris noticed a blue glowing popsicle on the plate. Without further thinking, Chris jumped on it and started eating like he was the hungry lion. Toriel looked shocked after Chris finished the popsicle. Toriel said, Chris, this wasn't the popsicle. Toriel told Chris to learn the anatomy of the Undertale skeletons. When Chris came up to Ezreal's computer, he found out what Toriel meant. From such desperation, Chris knelt and screamed, Sans! He was holding the letter A for so long, so I felt his pain. He probably had the worst week in his whole life. His classmate got frozen, his stepdad got frozen, friends left him, and he also ate Sans's, well, you know. Chris hated the soul much more than we could even imagine. Chris destroyed his own soul in a torturing way, making Chris to unalive himself, and the story of Deltarune is finished on the weird route of Chapter 5. As I promised about the secret ending, let's come back to Chris sealing the fountain, while Noelle has the Thorn Ring and the Thorn Armor. As Chris wanted to leave the Dark World, he was stopped by Noelle. "Chris, where are you going? You will stay with me." Quite an ironic turn of events. We were controlling and manipulating Noelle, and now she is dominating us. You try to dominate her, backwards proceed, but it doesn't work. You created a true monster, which will now decide your fate. Noelle understood Chris's manipulations, and she froze Chris to death. The eternal end of the game. You might ask where I get that information. Well, at first, trust me bro. At the second, this is absolutely true. If Deltarune Chapter 5 is going to look completely different from what I described, then I'm going to take a Ralsei plushie and stick him right into my ass. The weird route is the worst ending in the whole game industry. So click on this video if you want to find out why Deltarune community is even worse.